first thing that needs to be understood is that some of the things that they care about, I do not. I do not care about making money for myself or securing a future for myself. They have basically told me that because of the way I see things, they can't allow someone like me to get into a position of power. Not in those words, but that is the message. I know this for sure. Also, it has been disclosed to me in the past that they intend to use drugs on me that cause brain damage. Not just psychiatric drugs. I've had other target individuals explore these ideas, and I have one of them, I have someone on the inside who basically told me, other than the female who told me that she was told to provoke me to go to the psych ward by an atheist who obviously was a gang stalker, who doesn't, who pretends that she doesn't really know what's going on with gang stalking, but she almost certainly knows more than she lets on. But I have someone else, and this person says that they intend to induce brain seizures as their primary goal, but they're not sure that it will work out that way. So they intend to have brain damage, and if they can get me to the hospital and get me to have a brain scan, that they will then substantiate what my parents have been saying all along. So when they looked at the possible outcomes, one is that I become like what do you call those people in the hospital, like a lemon, like a, people on life support, brain dead, I forgot the word, doesn't, slip my mind right now, but, they're afraid of the precarious position that they could be put in, so they're trying to create a precipitous wall or an impassable wall around me, politically, socially, economically, even spiritually, when you look at people I might connect with on a spiritual level, and to control all these things. So one of the scenarios, one of the possible outcomes that probably my family would prefer is that it would seem, the brain scans would seem to substantiate their claims of me having brain seizures, which have been all but abandoned over the years. I haven't had a diagnosis of temporal lobe seizures ever, officially ever, but my parents have always held on to that idea. And so for them to pretend to be vindicated through brain scans is their ideal situation. And by me putting this out here, it makes it very hard for them to do that, but not impossible. I've called them on what they've done, that they're doing it before, and they kept on doing it. And it's interesting how part of this program works. Part of how this program works is that, a lot of the people they target make videos on YouTube. Myron May, and they try to send messages out to other people, and in the end, when all is said and done, it's to no avail. So, one must consider that. That is why I go out of my way to research things and to put things in a way that is very easy to understand, and other times I put things in a way that intellectuals can appreciate, so people know that, yes, I have a degree in software engineering. I'm a very logical guy. I come to conclusions logically. I check for errors. In programming, you have syntax errors, and logic errors. And so, I check for different kinds of errors. It's how I've been trained, when I was being educated, with my college education. It's also how I was trained in my martial arts education, the different aspects of life, So I'm very well, I'm very familiar with how to figure out when there's a problem and how to fix it. And so over the years, it's become very obvious to me that what they're doing, their tactics, very straightforward, what you would expect, exactly what you would expect, where they basically are covertly drugging me, and then they're criticizing my behavior, my dress, and anything they can, and they're considering what I'm saying, to head them off, to try to avoid them being successful with their tactics. And for the most part, I have been. I've never come across someone in the comments who wasn't obviously sent by them, or wasn't, just a troll who didn't see it my way. So I'm very happy with the rate of recidivism and the rate of understanding with my viewers. That's never been a problem, and I'm very happy. I'm very, thankful to God for that people see my videos and they know that this guy, he's smart, he's articulate, he's well-spoken, he's sophisticated. It's ridiculous to think that there's something wrong with him, because he, is more perceptive than 95 to 99% of the population. Also, when I was younger, to get into the college prep school web that I went to, I scored the top percentile on the SSATs, and I did Algebra 2 in kindergarten. So I've always had a very logical, perceptive mind. I've always been able to ascertain ideas and thoughts that many people miss from different situations. I've always had great deductive reasoning skills. So, it's quite interesting that they would choose me, and I think a lot of this has to do with a misunderstanding about why my parents believe why my parents claim that there's something wrong with me. Ironically, their lack of understanding psychology determined what angle they would take, and they underestimated me. They said, well, if, even though this guy is sane and he has more logical argument about what is going on than his parents do, and he has more insight into what is going on than his parents do, we can still drug him and use the tactics on everyone else. Okay, that is probably what's going on. If you're going to think of it in a way that is the most favorable to the people, to the gang stalkers, makes them look the best, is that they knew that I would be one of the more difficult cases, and they wanted to see how well they could, pretend that I'm crazy, how well they could set me up to look crazy, because they knew I was a difficult case to do that. But I don't think they're that clever. I don't think they're that smart. I don't think they, that's the conclusions they came to. I think that they simply thought that this would be a walk in the park, and they greatly underestimated me. That's the feeling I get. So, yeah. Now, just because I was told that doesn't mean it's true. The person who told me this could be a double agent, or, a triple agent. Okay, they're an agent that works for them, that pretends to be on my side, right? That pretends to be a double agent, but in fact, they're really on their side, right? The whole time, they pretend to be, working on my behalf. So, when it comes to sources and informants, they'll probably have a pretty good idea who it is. But they probably won't, I doubt they'll know for sure, because a lot of these people have contacted me on the streets, they've contacted me on the internet, and so on and so forth. So, and this has been going on for quite some time, so I'm not going to tell you when that took place. It could be years ago, it could be yesterday. I'm not going to give any hint about that, leave them guessing and stressing. But really, it doesn't prove anything. It's not definitive. And that's another thing that separates me from a lot of people who have been accused of having mental illness, and especially those who actually have mental illness, is that anything that is hard to believe that I have asserted may, and the key word is may, be going on, I say, I truly need a lot of evidence to believe it. That's why I don't believe in aliens, and it doesn't even make sense to me that that's what would be going on, because there's not enough evidence. I'm a very evidence-driven person. My religious choices are based on morality and the evidence in society. What kind of person do these religions create? What are they saying about God? Could they be misinterpreted? What are the main principles? What are the key points? what is the moral of the story, you know, the greater story, and what are the morals of the individual stories in this religion, and so on. So I'm very logical. You know, I don't believe in things that are ridiculous, things that, you know. And so it is very hard to play out someone like me as crazy, because I have a long history. A lot of people who go crazy doing drugs, for instance, are the types of people who aren't deep thinkers their whole life, okay? So when they start getting drugged up, they start thinking crazy things, they don't really catch themselves because they're not in the habit of going way out of their way to make sure that they're right. But those few people, you know, maybe 1% tops, you know, of people in the population, such as myself, who are in the habit of going way out of their way to make sure they're right, arguing with people all their life to truly refine their point of view. It's very hard to drive someone such as myself insane. You know, what's probably going to happen is you're going to cause them a serious amount of brain damage. You'll mess up his speech patterns, perhaps. You know, it's most likely subtly at first. I mean, what you're seeing is what you would expect if you truly think about it. You know, there'll be little insignificant slips, you know, perhaps a little bit more often than the normal people, perhaps not, than a normal person, and perhaps not. But ultimately, you're not going to see me make ridiculous claims ever. You know, what you might see is that I have severe brain damage, and I just start showing signs of severe brain damage because, you know, it's what it is. Like, even when I was a drunk, I still made sense. Even when I was high, I still made sense, and I thought logically. So it's not a logical course of action to try to drug and run a psych op on someone like me. You'll just get exposed. People will see what I'm saying. They'll know that I'm right, and I have that ability to look into myself that very few people have, and to truly critique myself in a fair and balanced manner. You know, I'm very sure of myself for a good reason, you know, but I don't have false pride. I'm not overconfident. I'm confident, not overconfident. I'm very confident, not overconfident. I know, you know, when I'm pushing it. You know, for example, I'm not going to jump off a fucking cliff and expect to fly. You know, I know when I'm pushing it, and it doesn't have to be that dramatic of an example for me to know, or of a scenario for me to know. So yes, you know, I think it's very tragic that you people just don't understand the seriousness of the situation. You just don't. I mean, don't forget that what brought me to this point is my deep conviction that psychiatry was a fraud. I mean, more so than my belief in secret societies. In a way, the people in charge don't truly have a problem with you believing in secret societies, as long as you truly don't know what you're talking about. As long as you have a very vague understanding, a very simple understanding, especially if you have misconceptions about it. If you know the truth about it and you understand things like the swinger movement being started by people in secret societies who were in a setting where they were comfortable with talking about such things, you know, people who were doing orgies in secret societies and practicing sex magic, you know, there were the people who started the swinger movement. And on record, Crowley, Hermetic Orders, Golden Dawn, OTO, etc., on record did, you know, do sex magic. On record, the Church of Satan. So these were the types of people, especially a lot of liberals and stuff, who did these sorts of things. And, you know, when you have this understanding of it in a very fact-based perspective, that's where the problem comes in. And the reason why they got on me tough was they saw the resistance to psychiatry, and they saw me digging deeply. My arguments weren't, for the same reason they can't truly play me out as crazy to anybody with an IQ or with a basic understanding. You know, it's the same reason why they got on my case. I didn't just make this kind of basic argument about psychiatry. I delved into it. And I'm sure if you look into my videos, my different channels, you'll see that I thoroughly explored this from a fact-based perspective in a very insightful manner. And it became a very huge threat to them. When somebody who is smarter than you is exposing you, you know, you want to drug them and try to play them out. And that's what's going on here. You know, I'm the top martial artist, a brain surgeon's son, a software engineer, and I've exposed inferior minds constantly. Thank you. have someone else, and this person says that they intend to induce brain seizures as their primary goal, but they're not sure that it will work out that way. So they intend to have brain damage, and if they can get me to the hospital and get me to have a brain scan. The first thing that needs to be understood is that some of the things that they care about, I do not. I do not care about making money for myself or securing a future for myself. They have basically told me, past, that they intend to use drugs on me that cause brain damage, not just psychiatric drugs. I've had other targeted individuals explore these ideas, and I have one of them, I have someone on the inside who basically told me, other than the female who told me that she was told to provoke me to go to the psych ward by an atheist who obviously was a gang stalker, who doesn't, who pretends that she doesn't really know what's going on with gang stalking, but she almost certainly knows more than she lets on. That because of the way I see things, they can't allow someone like me to get into a position of power. Not in those words, but that is the message. I know this for sure. Also, it has been disclosed to me in the past